Hey guys, so today I wanted to talk to you about how I studied for Step 1. So just to give you guys a little bit of a background, I took Step 1 in February of my second year of medical school, so that was just a couple months ago now. So I'm just going to explain first how my school does like the first 2 years of didactics, just to let you guys know like how I was able to study during the year and what I did during the year, and then go into what I did like a few months before dedicated, and then what I did during the dedicated time for studying for Step 1. So like I said, I took Step 1 in February of my second year of med school, and so that's a little bit atypical for med school students. Most of you guys probably take it like around the end of your second year, right before you start clinicals, and then other schools kind of do it like differently. Our school does it a little bit differently. Instead of having like 2 years of didactics, we do 18 months of didactics where we're just learning in the classroom, and then we sit for Step 1, and then we start clinicals in March. I have a video all about how I studied during the first 18 months of med school, and I'll link that down below, and that kind of gives you like an idea of what I did during the year to study. I think it's really important to study well during those first 2 years before you take Step 1 and get a really good basic foundation of medical knowledge. And I think that's the first tip I'll give you guys, is to make sure that you're studying really well during your first and second year. When you're doing dedicated for Step 1, you want to make sure that you've seen everything at least once, and that you kind of have an idea of everything, and that you're not learning it for the first time. You kind of just want to be relearning it, because obviously relearning a concept is a lot easier than learning it for the first time. So you want to make sure that you're studying really well during the first 2 years, whether that's, you know, doing Anki your whole first 2 years. A lot of people did that. I didn't do that, so this video is kind of more for people who might have not done Anki like during their first 2 years. However you study, make sure that you're studying really well those first 2 years, so that you're just relearning the material during dedicated and you're not learning it for the first time. So that would be my first tip for you guys. I'll go into a little bit more about what I did the summer after my first year, right before my second year. If you guys have summer break, then that's a really good time to kind of like refresh on things. And I wouldn't go crazy studying. You know, you had a really tough year and it was your first year of medical school. You know, there's a lot of ups and downs going on during that time. So I didn't want to go crazy studying. You know, I know a lot of people like studied a lot during that summer, but I felt like I was gonna just get burnt out, and I was already pretty burnt out by the end of my first year. And so I was like, you know, I want to enjoy my summer. I went and traveled, you know, I did research and did other things. I also just did a little bit of studying, and what I did was watch Sketchy Micro, and I also did the LOL Not a Cop deck for the Sketchy Micro, and I'll link the LOL Not a Cop deck down below. But for me, watching Sketchy was kind of just like a nice, like, light thing to do. It wasn't going crazy and studying a lot. And then the deck was really easy to do because there's not a lot of cards. It's not like 20,000 like there are in the, like, what is it, the Zanky deck or all those other decks. You know, it was only like a couple thousand, I think maybe 3,000 or something like that. So it wasn't like crazy, and I felt like I could do it. So I would just watch a couple videos a day and then add the cards to my Anki. I ended up finishing all of Sketchy Micro that summer. I planned on finishing Sketchy Farm as well, but I would have ended up watching a lot of videos, because I would watch my Sketchy Micro videos twice, and then I would add the decks and do the decks. Just because one pass through over Sketchy Micro didn't really stick in my head all the time. So because I'd watched them twice, I ended up not being able to finish in time to do Sketchy Farm. I was also doing a bunch of other things, and like, honestly, while I was traveling, I didn't want to watch a lot of videos, so I ended up not watching so many. I would do cards and stuff every few days, but I don't think I watched any new videos. So I just ended up finishing Sketchy Micro, and I honestly felt really prepared for Micro for this exam because I did that. I like knew Micro so well, and it was always like on the top of my subjects for all of my NBME tests that I took, all of UWorld. Like, I always killed it on Micro. So what I did during that summer really helped, and I kind of wish I had done that for Farm, but my Farm was also really high up there too, so I don't think I would have done anything really different for Micro and Farm. I think Sketchy is the way to go for Micro and Farm, and everyone will tell you that nowadays. That's all that I did for that summer. I just watched Sketchy Micro, did those decks, and then we started school again. It was all new material. We weren't like reviewing anything, so I was still just focused on learning that material really well the first time around. And then our school was done by November. We finished learning all the new things by November, and we were supposed to sit for step 1 in February. So in November, what my school did was we took the CBSE exam. That's the Comprehensive Basic Science exam. And I honestly felt so unprepared for that, since all I had done was micro. I felt like I forgot everything, and to be honest, I did really bad on the CBSE exam, and I felt like I was gonna fail step 1. I didn't even pass that exam, and I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna fail this exam, and I was completely clueless this entire time that I'm just gonna be failing this exam. What did I even do these past year and a half? Was I even studying? I was just really stressed out. I cried. It was not a good time. That definitely lit up a fire under my butt, and so I was like, oh gosh, I really need to study, and I really need to take dedicated seriously. So between November and the end of December, my school had kind of a review period, and we had to go in class for this review period. What we would do is we would have class sessions where we would have a topic like GI, cardio, different things like that, and then the professors that taught that block would come back and they would make a 10-question quiz. We weren't actually graded on these quizzes, but they were just to, have something for us to talk about during the the session. So we would take this quiz, and then we would talk about each of the questions and do it as a class. I don't think I got a whole lot out of it, just because I was kind of doing my own thing at home. I wasn't studying the topic right before we would go into class, and these quizzes were just 10-question quizzes, and you can't really cover everything in GI in 10 questions. So what I would do at home is, during that time, I watched all of Sketchy Farm, since I hadn't gotten to it during the summer break. I watched all of Sketchy Farm, and I was kind of trying to do the cards with it. I think a Sketchy Farm deck, but I honestly didn't get through those cards at all. But I finished watching all of Sketchy Farm. I watched all of the videos twice. We had class from really early until pretty late in the day, so we were doing that for quite a while, and that was a little bit frustrating because I just wanted to go home and study. But yeah, that's the only thing I had time to do, was to do Sketchy Farm. And then at the end of December, this review period, we took these subject exams. And I don't quite know where they came from, maybe the NBME site, but they were just subject exams. I think they were 2 or 3 hours, and they were on micro, path, and pharmacology. Yeah, I think those were the 3 exams that we took. And then we also took a, what was it? A bioethics, a biostats ethics exam, but that was for our biostats ethics class. And so we also kind of had a review of biostats and ethics, which was really nice to have right before step 1. So we took those 3 exams, and they gave us percentile scores back. I don't really know what the point of those exams were. They said if you don't pass them, then you can't take step 1, because they were concerned that we weren't ready for them. But those are really difficult exams, and I don't think a lot of us passed them. And they gave us just percentile scores back, not a percentage, just what percentile you were. And so we didn't even know if we passed or what happened with those. I did really bad on those too, and it freaked me out. After we took those exams, I took a week off just to mentally recuperate and just to get back into it. It was winter. It was winter break. It was during Christmas time, so I took that week of Christmas off, and then I was gonna start dedicated right after. I think I started December 30th. Right before I took that week off, I had gone to see my academic advisor kind of in mid-December, because I was just panicking and I thought I was gonna fail STEP, and he recommended that I take an NBME right after all of those, or right before all of those subject exams, just to see what I'm strong at and what I need to work on more, and kind of focus my schedule based off of that. So I took NBME Form 20, yeah, right before all of those subject exams that I took, and I did a little bit better. Actually, I did quite a bit better than my CBSE exam, and so that was really nice to see. During that week of break, I guess you would call it. I did watch Pathoma on the subjects that my NBME Form 20 had showed me that I wasn't really good at. So I watched the videos on that. I had watched some Pathoma videos like during the first 2 years of during the first 18 months of medical school. Pathoma wasn't really something that I like went towards though. I kind of did more boards and beyond, but I felt like Pathoma was a lot more better to watch during dedicated, and that's what I did, but I'll tell you guys about that when I get to the dedicated portion of the video. Pretty much before STEP, I had watched Sketchy Micro, Sketchy Farm, some Pathoma videos, and then I had done an NBME Form 20 and did my CBSE. So that's kind of what I did all before dedicated period. During dedicated period, what I think is really, really important is to make a schedule for yourself. If that's the type of person that you are, I know that I work really well on schedules. And if I don't know what I'm doing that day or what I'm supposed to be doing that day, then I get really stressed out and I just kind of get overwhelmed. So the way that I kind of helped my stress, I was really stressed during that time. I was like, okay, I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna make a schedule, and I'm gonna map out everything that I'm gonna go through each day and what I'm gonna do each day. And I pretty much scheduled every hour of my life for the next, what was it, like 6-7 weeks of studying. And I'll link the schedule down below if I can, or I'll just take like a picture of it and like insert it into the video here. So I'm gonna go through a typical day of dedicated now. So I started dedicated on December 30th, and I was gonna take my exam on February 14th on Valentine's Day. And so that gave me, what, 7 weeks? I think I had like 7 weeks of studying. And I think that that was plenty. That was maybe a little bit too much. Our school recommended we do like 5 to 6 weeks, and I just felt like I needed a little bit more, so I did 7 weeks. But I felt pretty burnt out that last week, so I would recommend like definitely no more than 7, but I feel like 6 weeks is the sweet spot. Like after that, you kind of just start forgetting things and you kind of just aren't doing as well, and I definitely noticed that in my scores. So I decided I wanted to wake up at 7 a.m. every day, and I wanted to go to bed at 10 p.m. So actually I started studying at 7 a.m. so I actually woke up at like 6 a.m. so I'd get 8 hours of sleep at night, and then I'd wake up at 6 a.m. and I would, you know, kind of get ready. And then by 7 o'clock, I was sitting at my desk ready to study. What I would do is I would start with questions, and I felt like questions were going to be the most important during my dedicated study period. And so I wanted to do my questions first thing in the morning, because I'm more of a morning person, more of like a morning studier, and then in the afternoon I get a little bit more distracted, I'm more tired, and it's a little bit harder for me to focus. So that's why I wanted to do my questions in the morning. I gave myself 3.5 hours to get through 40 questions. So I would do 40 questions and then I would review them in 3.5 hours, just because I'm a really slow learner. And so it actually did take me 3.5 hours. And that first week, it really took me a little bit longer than that. I would go into like my gym time, and I was really stressed out about that, just because I like read really slowly. I was trying to like make sure that I understood everything that I was reading, and so it did take me about like 3.5 hours to review 40 questions. And then I would go to the gym and I would do lunch, and the gym was something that was really important to me. It was kind of like my wellness thing to do during dedicated period, and I think it's really important that either you exercise or you have like some type of hobby that you really enjoy doing. Obviously this time is like super stressful. It's probably one of the most difficult times during med school, just because step 1 is really important exam. I think now that it's pass fail, maybe it's going to be a little bit different, but for the meantime, before it becomes pass fail in 2022, step 1 is a really important exam. So definitely make sure you're doing, you're exercising, you're doing some type of hobby that you're enjoying during this time as well. And then after that, I'd be ready to go again at 12:30. I would do another set of 40 questions. I always did those timed, just from the start, because I knew I wasn't really good with timing. So I really wanted to make sure to get the timing down, so I did them all timed, and then afterwards I would review them. I'd look at all the UWorld questions. I would look them up in first aid if the UWorld question explanation wasn't enough. So then I'd have dinner for 30 minutes, and then after I had a time slot from 5 to 7, and it says FAPS, that's first aid, Pathoma, Sketchy. And the first day I did try to read first aid, and if you guys see in my schedule, I broke up first aid based off of the pages, and I gave each subject a certain amount of days to do it. So what I did was I gave myself, like, you know, 2 days for endocrine, like 3 days for cardio, different things like that. And then there was like a certain amount of page numbers dedicated to those subjects in first aid. And then I just divide them by the number of days that I gave myself for that subject. And I did read first aid for the endocrine section, and then I realized really quickly that, like, this is not helping. I don't like learn from just reading, and so I really didn't even end up going through first aid other than, you know, flipping through it kind of like for reference while I was doing my UWorld questions. I kind of stopped that completely, but I still stuck to the number of days I gave myself per subject, and I actually just ended up doing all of the pathoma videos and watching those. So yeah, pretty much completely ditched first aid and then just watched pathoma videos, and I felt like that's how I learned best. And for subjects that were a little bit trickier, like all of the like nephrotic syndromes, I would also write them down on a whiteboard over and over again after I watched those pathoma videos to memorize them. So after first aid, pathoma, sketchy, I would do Anki. I only put Anki, micro, and pharm, but what I ended up doing was from my missed questions in UWorld and also from my missed questions in my practice tests, I made an Anki deck. I completely stopped doing micro and pharm. I felt like I got that covered and I didn't need to do it every single day. I felt like that was a little bit overkill. I tried to start a deck, like a pathoma deck, and there was just too much information. I didn't feel like I could finish it. I was like, I can't do that. So basically my main method of remembering all of my missed questions was by making an Anki question out of them and then doing those Anki cards. I gave myself from 7:30 to 8:30 to do Anki, and I honestly ended up doing a lot more Anki than that. Probably like on week 4, week 5, I started waking up super early. I was just really stressed out. I felt like my scores weren't improving. I started waking up early, like 5 a.m., and I started doing Anki before 7 a.m., and I tried to finish all of my Anki before then. And then I moved my schedule around a lot my fourth and fifth week. But I basically kept it the same with like the questions, the pathoma, and then doing the Anki. And I honestly felt that doing Anki on your missed questions was super helpful because obviously that's the information that you don't really get. And so seeing it like every single day, like remembering it over and over again was really, really helpful. And I absolutely recommend doing some type of review of the questions that you missed. And then, you know, I scheduled time to talk to my boyfriend. I made sure that I had time to do that. And Sundays were a little bit different because instead of working out, I would go to church, and I made sure that I had time for that. I know this is a really long video. I'm sorry about that. But the last thing I'm going to be talking about is my practice tests. So my actual test, like I said, was going to be on February 14th, which was a Friday. So during dedicated, every Friday, I ended up taking a practice test. I don't feel like that was too many or too little. I think it was just the right amount. And so the first one that I started off with was UWorld 1, and this is a test that comes with your UWorld question bank. And everyone I talked to, you know, all of the medical students in the year above me, when I looked on Reddit, everybody said to kind of take UWorld 1 first because it was the easiest and it was kind of going to be a nice confidence boost. It was especially good after the first week because during that first week you're just getting used to like studying like 10 to 12 hours a day, and it's really hard, and you know, you really do need that confidence boost. So I took that. I scored really well on it. I was like super excited. You know, I thought I was like on cloud 9. I was like, I'm gonna just do so great on this test. Yeah. So then we get to week 2, and then week 2 I took MBME 21, and I again didn't do that great. I was like freaking out. I was like, what happened? Like, people, like, you know, in my head I was thinking like, okay, UWorld 1 over predicts a lot, but I was like, you know, I'm at least within like 20 points of that, and I like dropped, I think, like, I don't know, 30 something points, and I was like, oh my god, I at least thought like I had gotten, you know, at least 20 points less than what I got in UWorld, and I didn't get that, and I was just freaking out again. And then after 21 I took NBME 24. I don't remember like how I decided which ones to take. I think I just went online and looked at like what was most predictive. There's a lot of new NBMEs that aren't really, there's not a lot of statistics on how predictive they are. I think just this last year they took out like a lot of the old NBMEs, added a lot of new ones. So really there wasn't quite a lot of statistics. There really wasn't quite a lot of statistics on how accurate they are, on what score you're gonna get. So I was just really taking them just for like more practice, just to get like into the mindset of I'm gonna sit at this time, take this exam for this many hours, kind of get an idea of like how the breaks were gonna be. Took NBME 24. I remember I did a lot better. I was super excited, and that's kind of all I remember about that one. So then I took NBME 18 the next week after that, and this one was supposed to be a little bit more predictive just because it's one of the older ones. And so I think our academic advisor and, you know, my sister, other people told me to take that like, you know, a little bit closer to your exam. And at that point I was just like freaking out. I did do better, but I still wasn't in the range that I wanted to be. And I was like thinking like, should I push my test back? I improved with each score. There wasn't like an instance where I like really digressed. So, you know, that was really like helpful to my nerves, you know, seeing that I was improving. I think between 24 and 18, I didn't jump up as many points as I had, but with my last two exams, so I was kind of like freaking out. I think I only jumped up like 5 points, and the last ones I was jumping up like between 10 to 20 points, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. But obviously the higher you get, the harder it is to, you know, jump up points. I was really thinking about pushing back my test, but you know, my school kept like insisting on us not pushing it back. They said, you're never gonna feel ready, you know, do not push it back whatsoever, you know, unless there's like an emergency in your family or something like that. Do not push it back just because you don't feel ready. So I kept listening to that, you know, thinking about that, and I was like, okay, I'm not gonna move it back, you know, even though I'm not really getting what I want yet, but I'm not gonna move it back. And on my schedule, I said free 120 first and then UWorld 2, but I actually ended up taking UWorld 2 and then doing free 120, because at that point I was really panicking about like my score and the scores that I was getting on my practice tests. And I was really thinking like, if I get a score like the week before my test and it's not what I want, like, mentally I'm really gonna be like down and I'm gonna not have confidence. And I was really worried about, you know, my confidence levels during the exam. So I was like, I'm not gonna take a test that gives me a score. So I took free 120 the week right before, and I actually switched it with UWorld 2. So I took UWorld 2. I was so excited. I got the score that I wanted to get on my actual step on UWorld 2, and I was like, this is it, I'm finally gonna get it. Like, I still have 2 more weeks to study and I got my score. Like, I'm gonna do even better than this. Yeah, so needless to say, I did not get the score that I got on UWorld 2. And I think this actually happened to Sabrina too. A lot of people either get that score or they get like above that score, but you know, some people actually end up getting below that score, and that happened for Sabrina and I. It also happened for my friend who I was reviewing these exams with, which I'll tell you guys about a little bit later. But yeah, we did not get the score that we got on UWorld 2. It would have been nice if we had, but I don't think any of us did, and it sucks. But you know, we got around that score, so it is predictive somewhat. You know, it's really different for everybody. For all these practice tests up until the free 120 one, the free 120 and the UWorld one, I actually reviewed them with one of my friends. We were just like messaging each other during step, you know, kind of like supporting each other. We both started like dedicated at the same time, so we were kind of just like going through it together, and then we would both take our practice tests on Friday. It's really helpful to actually review them with someone else, because you both have like different amounts of knowledge and you kind of can explain the questions and how you thought through them. And we would get through the questions a lot quicker than I would on my own, just because, you know, we would just like tell each other the information we knew. We didn't have to like look it up or anything. Sometimes we would look it up. And the NBME tests are really difficult to look up because they don't really have explanations. So you have to like go look at the answers, and then a bunch of people who have taken them will try to explain why this is the answer, but it's not really as well as UWorld. So I think it was really helpful for both of us to do it together. Overall, I kind of got around what my practice tests were. You know, I didn't get what my UWorld 2 said I was gonna get. Maybe I got what my free 120 said I was gonna get, but I have no idea. There were so many mixed opinions on free 120. But compared to my CBSE that I took, I definitely improved a ton. I was kind of upset with my score. I got a few points less than I had wanted to, you know, like the goal in my mind. You know, thinking back on it, I'm always like, oh, I should have studied more. I should have done this and this differently. But, you know, I know that I couldn't have studied more. I was already burnt out by the 6th week and I had another week to go. Maybe that was like my mistake. Maybe I went a little bit too long. In my schedule, I had like from the 8th until the 13th, I think, of cram week. And I actually didn't end up doing that at all because I still had UWorld questions. I ended up taking breaks. I don't remember. I feel like I didn't schedule any breaks except for my boyfriend's daughter's birthday, Ava, on January 25th. So I actually like flew to Reno for just a day to go to her birthday, and then I came back that evening. So that was the only break I had scheduled, just to take that day off. But I ended up taking breaks because like you can't go without taking breaks. I definitely recommend taking breaks. And, you know, scheduling in breaks, I think I ended up taking like either a half day off. After my practice exams, I would take like a half day off. I don't think I took a full day off ever, but I think I at least took a half day off every week. And then I took a break on Thursday. I took the whole day off. I just relaxed. Maybe reviewed some biostats and some other like equations that I needed to know. Yeah, I think that's it for how I studied for STEP. I hope you guys found that helpful. I know it was a super long video, but I hope you found it helpful. And if you didn't do so well on your CBSE and you're watching this exam, then know that there is hope. Good luck studying if you're studying, and you're gonna do great. This is just a small part of your med school life. I honestly don't even remember it. I think I suppressed that memory even though it was a few months ago. In my head, I'm thinking, you know, it wasn't that bad, but I remember that I was like crying and stressed out, and my boyfriend definitely remembers that time in my life. You'll get through it, I promise. It'll all be good. Yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you found it helpful, and I'll see you guys in my next video.